All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating book, Studies in Ethics by Dr. Ahmad Al-Raisuni. Now, this work makes a really powerful case for an idea that might change how you see things. The big argument here? That ethics isn't just some part of the Islamic tradition, it's the very heart of it. Let's get into it.
So, the book kicks off by throwing a big question at us, one designed to make us think. Is ethics just a list of do's and don'ts? A simple rulebook, or is it something much, much deeper? Dr. Al-Raisuni argues for the second one, that ethics is actually the foundation of life itself.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about ethics as the foundation of everything, we've got to be on the same page. What do we even mean by ethics in this context? Let's break down how the book defines its most central term. The core concept we absolutely need to grasp is the Arabic term al-khuluq. The book defines it as a stable, deep-seated disposition of the soul. Now those words are key. Stable and deep-seated tell you this isn't a fleeting mood. And the real kicker? Actions come from it easily. So this isn't about struggling to do the right thing. It's about having a character so ingrained that good actions just flow from you, naturally, without a big debate in your head. And that brings us to this really simple but profound point. True ethics, this khuluq, isn't so much about your individual actions, it's about your fundamental character. It's not just about doing good things, it's about being a good person. The action is just the proof, It's the fruit that grows on the tree of who you are inside. Okay, so if ethics is all about our core character, that begs the question, right? Where does this character even come from? Well, the next section explores the sources that build that ethical foundation. According to Dr. Al-Raisuni, it's a mix of three main sources working together. First, you have fitra, which is our innate human nature, that moral compass we're all supposedly born with. Then you've got din, which is religion, specifically divine revelation. Think of it as the manual that helps us calibrate that compass. And finally, there's al-urf, the positive social customs and culture that surround us and help shape us. So you can kind of see how this creates two categories of ethics. On one hand, you have the innate stuff from our fitra. These are the universals, like our built-in love for what's good and our dislike for what's evil. On the other hand, you have acquired ethics. This is the stuff we learn from our faith and our community. And the book's point is that you absolutely need both to have a complete, well-rounded ethical system. Now we get to what is, for my money, the most central and powerful argument in the entire book. It's this idea that in the Islamic worldview, ethics and law aren't separate categories at all. They're part of one single integrated system. The author points out a huge misunderstanding that's pretty common. A lot of people try to draw a hard line between the two. They'll put religious law and rulings in one box, and then ethics, or just being a good person, in a completely different box over here, as if they operate independently. But here's the book's main thesis. Dr. Al-Raisuni says that separation is completely false. Every single part of the Sharia, and I mean everything, from prayer to financial contracts, is built on an ethical foundation and is trying to achieve an ethical goal. Ethics isn't an add-on, it's the very DNA of the law. I love this metaphor. Think of it like a building. The law, the Sharia, that's the structure, the foundation, the walls, the roof. It provides the shape and the rules. But ethics, the khuluq, that's the soul of the building. It's the warmth, the life, the entire purpose for why the structure exists. A structure without a soul is just an empty, meaningless shell. So, if the law is the body and ethics is the soul, and they're working together, what's the endgame? What are they trying to accomplish? This brings us to a huge concept, the Maqasid al-Sharia, which basically means the higher objectives or the ultimate purposes of the law. This whole system is aimed at achieving these really profound goals. It starts at the micro level with the individual, purifying the soul. Then it scales up to the community level, trying to achieve human flourishing for everybody. And the ultimate macro-level goal is to fulfill the highest objectives of the divine law itself, big concepts like justice, mercy, and the preservation of life. So the main takeaway here is that this is not about blindly following rules just because they're rules. The whole point is to be transformative. The entire ethical and legal framework is meant to be a roadmap for building a world that's actually rooted in justice, compassion, and human dignity. That's the grand vision. Now, this all sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world?
The book gives a perfect practical example to make it all crystal clear.
Let's talk about medical ethics. The book makes this really profound point. Ethics isn't just a course a doctor takes in med school. A doctor's actual ability to heal is fundamentally tied to their character, their khuluq. You can have all the technical skill in the world, but if the person wielding that skill doesn't have a sound ethical core, something is deeply wrong.
And look at how beautifully this connects everything we've talked about. A doctor's ethics in practice, well, that's taqwa, that constant awareness that they are accountable to God for their patient. It's rahmah, or mercy, which is the engine driving them to ease suffering. And in doing so, they are directly serving the maqasids, those higher objectives of preserving life. It all clicks together.
And this all leads to the ultimate embodiment of this entire vision. This quote is one of the most powerful statements in the Islamic tradition. When the Prophet's wife Aisha was asked about his character, his khuluq, she said something amazing. His character was the Quran. Just think about that. It's the ideal personified, someone whose inner self is a perfect living reflection of divine principles. His life was the message.
And so, the book leaves us with a challenge. Because it's one thing to know all of these definitions and principles, but the final question is for us. In our own lives, in our jobs, in our families, what does it truly mean to embody our ethics? To transform them from something we know in our heads into a living reality that flows from our hearts and into our actions? That's a question we're left to ponder.